This is Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor, and today I am here with the British sorcerer of CGI, the animagus of animation, Mr. Samuel Cockings. Welcome back to Fan Film Factor, Samuel.
Hi there. Good to be back. Although I think you
Now,
mentioned me a few times over last year with all the different blogs, talking about all the different things I've been part of, so I've never been far.
that's true, and in fact, I want to ask you a question at this point.
Cool.
Is there any Star Trek fan film that came out during 2019 that you didn't work on?
Well, there was the Aaron Vanderklay one that I was surprised I worked on. That was a very, you got 3 weeks. What? So that was the surprise one, but I'm sure I'm sure a couple.
But let's see, you worked on Dreadnought Dominion.
That was nice, yeah.
You did 2 episodes of Avalon
Mm-hmm.
Lost, and Demons.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you sneak in on?
Equinox Effect, I was in that with a couple
Equinox
of shots.
Effect, yeah, you did some stuff for there.
Aaron Vanderklay video. I don't think Intrepid released anything, but I've got one in the pipeline for them. And a lot of Romulan War that no one's seen.
Yeah, right, though.
Audios came out, so maybe people have seen some stuff, but a lot of stuff for that.
And you're currently working on even more stuff. Some of it is secret, I know, so I won't bring it up. But I do know that in addition to your own project, you have lots of other projects. So you are basically animating Star Trek fan films. I mean, for us, you are the reason we see starships.
And it's a pleasure. You know, I told this to you previously, but when I was young, seeing Star Trek, the ships always really got to me, hence I have a web show about them, you know.
Trek Yards, by the way, if you haven't watched it, go ahead, and it's very interesting stuff.
Thank you. And I've always, you know, I was into Legos, into miniatures, not making them, but you know, I'm not that creative to actually paint stuff. And I used to fly them around and have, what could you do with these things? You know, what could you imagine? And so being able to do that in 3D is a real dream to have learned that, and then to be able to bring people's visions to life. You know, it's nice to have them all on a similar plane of coolness, where only the imagination and story of the artist, the director, is the limiting factor. You know, in fact, things like Aaron Vanderklay's project, I actively said, you don't just want 2 more ships in the shot, do you? I mean, I've got them. Can we up the scope a little bit? Because if you've got them, you know, I'd rather them be a really cool shot than just to be what was on the page. And yeah, no, it's a real pleasure, and hopefully people are enjoying the Star Trek that fans are creating over 2019. Some good stuff.
Yeah, and so now we're going to transition into Convergence, which is your project. And that is a multi-fan film crossover because you are bringing in Nick Cook from Star Trek Intrepid. You are bringing in Robin Hurt, however it's pronounced. He's from the Netherlands, so he is from Star Trek Dark Armada. You are bringing in the villains from Renegades.
Yes, and the and the Archer. So
and the Archer
and a ship.
Yeah, and a ship. So we get to see the Archer. Is it just the Archer class, or we actually see the Archer?
No, it's the Archer class. It's an early iteration because I you know, this takes place a bit in between, so earlier.
There you go. A little time travel involved in all this. And then let's see what else. You have your own Temporal Anomaly, a character from that, or at least a relative to a character from that.
Yeah, Monroe. Captain Monroe is back, but not in the same way. Watch Temporal Anomaly for reasons why. He's back, and then the descendant...
Yeah, no spoilers for Temporal Anomaly.
And the descendant of our NX-1 character, who's now playing her own great-granddaughter, who's now a higher rank lieutenant. Yeah, and she's the pilot of the Horizon. So a nice little bit of crossover. I mean, you know, the word tells Star Trek Avengers. You know.
Now, there's one change that you announced in your video that you just released, which was Jim Van Dultren, who was, I guess, he was going to be reprising his character from Star Trek Republic. Was that correct?
Nope, completely different.
No.
It's just the actor that I liked.
Just the actor, okay. Yes. So there's nothing related. But anyway, Jim is not going to be in Convergence now. So can you talk about what happened there?
Yeah, so a lot of things have happened and not happened in 2019. And one of the things that sort of had to happen was that Jim, who was in Star Trek Republic and other little bits like Raven and you know, in 2018...
He's been all over the place.
Yeah, or at least he was for a time. He was very active in the fan community. I worked with him on Republic. We ended up being very involved in Republic 2.0 and 3.0 to try and get that being made. And at some point, his real life just took over and things were happening, and I'm not privy to most of them, but he couldn't invest time in fan films that we got used to, me and Ray Tessie, when working on Republic. And I pitched him Convergence when he was much more free and able, and then by the time we reached the Indiegogo, he was so unreachable that he couldn't even promote the Indiegogo, and it was kind of, we took on faith that he'd be back in 2018, but communicating with him proved incredibly difficult for 2018, and so it was made a decision just to move on and bring someone else in, because fundamentally, if you're going to bring someone from America, there's one budget for that, and you've got to make sure that it's a reliable person that has the time and freedom to come do it. So
that's true, because you were going to be filming all of this in
the same
merry
room,
old England. Yes, the same room. And so part of your crowdfunder, I think you raised about $7,300 American at the time.
Yeah, Convergence really screw that over, but yes, enough to fly everyone in. Which is nice.
So you're flying people in from Nick from Scotland, and you're flying Robin in from the Netherlands, because I'm guessing he's not going to swim it.
Or take spaceship, no.
Or take a spaceship, or just jump over the English Channel.
Or getting a difficult train up. Yeah, an hour and 45 train. Yeah. Well.
And actually, I guess Nick can also take a train, because Scotland is landlocked with the rest of your island.
Yeah, it's just a long one. He's been driving, I think, this year.
But the big one was getting Jim in from America, and that was obviously
and his costume as well,
his costume. So instead, you have decided to replace Jim with a very unusual, unexpected. I mean, at least I didn't expect it. And by the way, I put the word "spect" in "expect" because it's Michelle Specht from Star Trek Continues. She played McKenna, the ship's counselor.
And you can't see my grin, unexpected, because it's funny you say that. She was literally my first go-to choice, which might seem odd, but for you who didn't expect it. But I was just like, well, that is, obviously replacing a character, a captain, quite important to the role, a lot, right? I mean, this is the character from the future. This is a lot's riding on this character. And instantly I thought Michelle would be a potential. Knowing her from the fan film circles, reputation-wise, that she's absolutely lovely. Seeing what she did with Star Trek Continues, what she could do outside of that character, because, they're all limited by their own little typecast characters there. I saw a lot of potential, and luckily, I guess the short version is she said yes. And that took many months to organise, half of 2019 to get that. But yeah, she's joined the cast, she's playing that character. And there are script rewrites happening because a different actor brings different nuance to it. And she's excited. I'm excited. We're all excited.
And I know you didn't actually give details of talking Michelle into it, but I'm kind of curious how that conversation, how does one go about talking an actress into joining your fan film?
Well, I mean, it feels like she's semi-retired after her last episode. I mean, she hasn't been in anything since, but I didn't get the sense that was because she was actually out of the game, as it were. It's just, that was the project she was involved in. And basically I got in contact with her via Ray Tessie, who took over the Star Trek Continue sets, who brought her to one of his events. Obviously they got a good friendship over that. I was able to go through him to talk to her, and honestly, the story, the idea, that sold her enough to meet with me. She was surprised by how young I was, because the pitch was just the story. It was like, oh, hello, you're British and you're that young, interesting. But the script and my vision, my passion sold her. Things took a long time to move forward on that, as booking someone that busy to even have a Skype meeting. It could take 4 weeks between a single meeting, which is fair enough. But I managed to talking to her in Vegas in person, which was a nice experience. So she was going to Vegas, and so was I for Trek Yards, and I managed to do the last thing I did in Vegas literally was meet with her, and that was the last big sale, show her in person, some stuff, and she sort of signed on a bit after that.
So let's talk a little bit about 2019, because obviously when last I spoke to you, you were still crowdfunding. This was September, October 2018, and you were all gung-ho. Temporal Anomaly was being released in January of 2019.
And it did amazing. Thank you, everyone who watched it. So
did a fantastic job. I mean, and you were working on that one since like 2013, and you didn't want this one to be the same sort of 6-year development process.
Yes.
So you were all gung-ho for everything happening in 2019, and here we are in 2020, and what happened?
It didn't happen. The first
shoot, that's honest.
yeah. The first shoot, well, first of all, the funds didn't even come until January. of 2019. So that was actually took a bit longer because international, with Trek Yards, they tend to be a bit as well. Indigo tend to be a bit delayed. So that wasn't a great start of the year because I was expecting it. Anyway.
We should explain to people that you'd already done one shoot with some of your characters, the European-based characters, and then you were actually raising money for the next shoot where you're going to be bringing Jim in from America, and you had to basically pay for...
And to refund the first shoot. We all paid for it ourselves, and we come to a net zero, and also 3D, all of the 3D things being created and stuff. Custom things, custom prices, and we hoped to film in the summer, the generic summer. We film at the university that I used to study at years and years ago. And the first shoot was there, went great. Which was the very last production to ever shoot in their green screen studio before they moved location, which I used that studio a lot as a student there, so I feel quite honoured to have been able to do that. And that was great. We got a lot done. They moved to a different campus, which ended up being not a great decision by them, but we're hoping it's by the time we end up shooting, it'll be smoothed out, and we would go and shoot there. Easy. Everyone seems fine with that. But now you've got to organise all these people in different time zones for a single weekend to all match up. And the university, which has to be completely okay with full access for a 24-hour weekend, unsupervised, whatever, because we've just got to go and do. There's no time. Although we have got, Chris Burdett, who plays Monroe, is a lecturer there, so he's obviously our supervision, but also acting in it. So that's a lot to organise. And with Jim's lack of communication in the latter half, or the latter part of 2018, I was uncertain as to how to continue to where to progress on how to organise things there. So I tried to do other little bits and bobs and give them a bit of time to, get over whatever happening in real life. And then as months progressed, the shoot was potentially getting closer, and yet certain things weren't moving forward. Obviously, without him being able to talk to, his costume wasn't being able to be organised and be built. The university couldn't be organised until I knew, if one piece doesn't work in this multi-lattice of people, it all falls apart. And once I decided to look for other actors to come in and help the shoot, that was sort of in June, July time, and then it took literally 6 months to go from the decision to actually commission and or actually bring Michelle on fully committed, because I wanted to do it properly in stages, the pitch, the script read, all the different things.
So between the first time you talked to Michelle and her finally giving you the yes, that was 6 months?
Well, no, between me deciding to go in a different direction, too.
Oh, okay.
It took a while just to get to Michelle, as you can imagine. And there was, this lots of little delays. Although, luckily, if we had filmed in the roughly summer time, Nick Cook for Intrepid actually broke his leg quite badly in the first third of the year, and that literally took him out of commission entirely until the last 2 months of the year. So if we had have booked everything, all the hotels, all the flights, non-refundable, it's cheaper because you only have so much budget, that would have all have to been scrapped, and might have had to cancel the entire project, because if it's all spent, you know what I mean, $5,000 doesn't come from nowhere. So that was actually kind of a good thing in the end, that we didn't book it, because I doubt the fates would have aligned me swapping the date to him be not breaking his leg.
Yeah, the fates seem to be completely against you filming in 2019, it sounds like.
Yeah. So yeah, those two things honestly just pushed it back 3 months at a time, to the point. And obviously, we're not going to film in December. I mean,
Who wants to go to England in December?
Well, no. And now you've got 2020, and the same problem happens where obviously the lecturer Chris Burdett actually got promotion this last year. Congrats to him, and he's way more busy, so he can't take a weekend during term time where he's actually a head lecturer. That's absurd. Plus learning quite a lot of lines, and the university can't necessarily give stuff. So now we've said, right, we'll try the summer of this year, because that gives everyone plenty of time to book, plenty of time to be free, plenty of time for a costume to get made for Michelle, because we have a high-end costume need. Everyone else has got good costumes, and hopefully Chris can get a day and a half off, because he's a busy man and he wants to have obviously a summer to himself. So that's kind of what we're hoping now. And then obviously if we need to book hotels and things far enough in advance, it'll be cheaper, and therefore the budget will actually stretch the entire way, because the Michelle costume is a little bit like Jim had a friend who's going to make it at lower cost, but Michelle is different, and so that's actually a higher budget than we thought it was going to be. So there are things and bobs that I think at the end of the day this will be a good thing. It just meant that there was a year delay, which was kind of strange.
Well, these things do happen with fan films. There's a misperception out there, I think, from a lot of people who don't really understand how many moving pieces there are in a fan film. It's like, well, why not just go out and film it. Why isn't it done already? You know, we gave you $7,000 or £5,000 or whatever it was, and go out and make the film. Stop, wasting time. And it's like, well, it's not that you're wasting time. You're just, there are so many I's to cross and T's to dot. And yes, I said that backwards on purpose, but it's just my way of being funny. But anyway, yes. So the fact is that there's so many moving pieces in everything that you do that sometimes things don't come together when you want them to, and your choice is to either wait until you can get everything done or just give up on the darn thing. You can't necessarily say, oh, okay, well, not everything's all set, let's just do what we can with what we have. You're in a situation where if you were to try to do stuff just locally with Nick, that would prevent you from doing other things. It really is more cost effective to you to have everybody there on campus the same weekend, even if that takes an extra year to happen.
And the fact is, this film is about the story and the acting, and the first shoot, so many really, really nice moments happened because everyone was in the same room, take number 3, letting the whole 3-minute scene play out, and just these moments that you cannot create via 3 people film on 3 green screens trying to match the lighting that you can never do. It was never going to work. And Michelle has some incredibly intense lines, and the reaction to those will be different depending on who she's given them to, and there's things that will really come to life. That Michelle she obviously worked on continues. She has a certain expectation of quality, but she's seen other fan films, and she was quite enthused by, I get to do work with these people, and obviously Nick is thrilled to get to work with Michelle because we've all seen Continues, and she is one of the brightest stars of Continues. And I think magic will happen and sparks will fly because they're all genuinely talented people, and when they know their lines, and I have a little bit, I give them a bit of freedom to play around with their own characters, which I do on set. It's going to be really, really worth the wait. But it's not like I did nothing in 2019 beyond organising. I mean, I was busy doing lots of other things.
That's true. And in fact, that's a good segue to my next question, because at the very end of your video, we see some of the visual effects that you've been working on. And you've been telling me that you've actually been doing a lot more than just what's in the video. So what have you been doing?
Well, the funny thing about Temporal Anomaly was we filmed it in about 3 segments over 3 years. But the visual effects took 3-4 years to make, so I kept redoing them. This time round, I know the quality I want to produce, so if I can't film part 2, I'll just finish off the visual effects, and they will be done, because there's only so far I can go. And currently, throughout the year, I've been, not a lot of time, because I've got other work, I've got other projects, but I've been able to carve out, I'm going to give myself a weekend of free time to do my own project. And over Christmas, I spent a long time, that was kind of my holiday to myself, was doing Convergence Vfx. And I've been working it solidly, and for the most part, the space effects are all rendered. I'm not going to say done, because there's, when a phaser hits a shield, you got to do all these little clever things to make it look extra sexy, but I've worked really hard, and I think almost all of the space effects, except the flashback stuff, because every single shot will be a battle. But until I get the new Michelle script worked out and how much scope I want to do for that, that'll tweak. Because if I want to throw in 10 space battle shots, okay, I'll do it, whatever. I'm the guy doing them. But the core film's effects are pretty much rendered. And boy, the feeling to get to the last shot this last week was like, damn, did it. So yeah, I mean, that will certainly make the second half of production easier. Once it's filmed, you just got to edit it and do a bit of green screen. And all the sets, are mostly finished. I say mostly because the 3D is, took 7 months, 8 months to make. They weren't done until March or middle of the year. Because that's all, part-time people helping out and such. But if a 3D set, it might look great now, but what if in one scene it helped, there's a bit of negative space, I could put a plant there, need to put a painting there. So I don't want to call them done until I have footage to look at and tweak, because that's, as a good artist would do that. But I mean, we're so poised just to go, just have to get them all together in the same room and just shoot the damn thing.
Now, one of the things that I noticed about one of your shots, and I discovered this also working with my guy, Lewis Anderson, on Interlude, I used to think that you just set up the shot and you did like an animatic pass, which is, very low res to make sure that, your director is happy or whatever.
I do know all about that, Jonathan.
and then you now that you've got it all, You just render the whole thing frame by frame by frame, 30 frames a second or whatever, and
Yep.
you're all done.
Yep.
But as I'm discovering, that's not the case at all. You actually render the same shot like multiple times. Can you talk about that? The actual physics of how that's done?
And also, congrats on Interlude, looking great so
Oh,
far.
thank you.
I did watch some of the lives and stuff, and I look forward to seeing it be made. You know, just any fan film being made by a fan film news group is kind of cool. So congrats, and I look forward to seeing it. I hope it's
It was
good.
an itch I had to scratch.
Got to live up to a lot there, but good luck.
I'll tell you something. In a quick interruption before you answer your question. First of all, I can't say enough about Josh and Victoria's abilities.
Oh,
as
I do know them from
director.
Avalon. Obviously,
Yes, Avalon. As director of photography, as cinematographer, as director, all of the stuff that they did. I mean, the Ares bridge set is amazing anyway. I mean, it's almost too amazing to film on, and yet you're allowed to film on it. But the stuff they did, this is going to be one of the best looking fan films, I truly believe, that people have seen yet. And obviously Axanar is going to be great too. And Paul Jenkins and I have become actually good friends in all of this. And it's just that you can do so much with that bridge. And there were some really, really good acting performances that happened, even out of Alec. He's the first person to say that, he's not an actor. And then, Lewis Anderson is not the real name of my visual effects guy, but, I'm calling him that. But I've been working with him and, Josh and Victoria now as well. And he's been really knocking it out of the park with some amazing shots. Now, the visual effects for us is still in an animatic form. So I haven't even seen what these things are going to look like.
I don't know how long that can take.
But yeah, I mean, it's basically Lewis has told me that, he doesn't just put everything on the screen and render it. He's going to render the shield separately as a different pass, and the torpedo hit and the explosion is a different pass. And
Well,
then
that's the joke. All of us artists that have grown up, we've seen the tech appear on the show, Voyager, Enterprise and stuff. If you go back to before that stuff, TNG, they filmed in passes with a motion control rig, which means you plug in a computer to a camera and you very basically go left 3 degrees, right 3 degrees, move in a path, and you can repeat that as many times as you want. And when they were doing miniatures, they did shoot elements because then they could composite, which means put them on top of each other, different things, and allow for, how you meant to turn the engines off, say on Enterprise D, the Bassard. Well, you could manually time it so that the lights go off, or if they don't go off fully, or you film it twice, once without the lights on, once with the lights, and you just turn the opacity down, whatever. So that's how they used to do it. And then in Voyager and Enterprise, it was kind of tricky. So mostly in Voyager and such, they rendered everything in one pass because rendering was so intensive you couldn't do it any other way. And so that's why it's really fun to see their stuff, because it is just one single rendered frame in a sequence. But now artists like me and your guy and Tobias and stuff, it's kind of nice to do it the old way again, because then you can control different things. Some things you should really do it in multiple passes anyway, but if for Convergence, I've seen so many shots where even though it might make 1% difference, I'm like, no, that Intrepid class needs more window brightness. It doesn't quite pop, so I'll pull out all the lights, pull out the Bassards, and just say render, 180 frames of just the window lights. And
then you basically and then you composite the two together. So you've got
exactly the
old ship
way
underneath it,
Yep.
and then you put the lights on top of it, and they're even brighter than they were in the original.
Yeah, and it's a really useful way of doing it. And you'd be amazed. Like I did the VFX documentary for Renegades, and it was really fun to watch Tobias. Tobias Richter, amazing talent. And he does it that exact way, and it was fun just to see him tweak stuff, because once you've got that, say, oh, that Bassard, which is just a separate layer, let's make it a bit more orange. Let's turn the orange value up. And now you're not having to affect the entire thing. And while it takes more time and more effort, when a problem comes around, you don't need to worry about the entire thing again. And obviously, when you're rendering, the most intensive thing is the lighting. And if you've got a light, how it interacts with objects is what takes time to calculate. If you remove all the Bassard lights, then suddenly the way that interacts with the Bassard and outside the Bassard, those calculations are removed from the sequence. and therefore it's quicker. So there's kind of nice things about it. I still use Lightwave and After Effects. I'm still an old school man. Tobias and most people use Maya, so that's kind of their thing. But yeah, old school kind of works. And yeah, some shots in Convergence have like 26 layers. It's bloody ridiculous.
Well, what would be those 26 layers, though? Give me an idea. List one shot that would have 26 layers and what those various layers are.
So obviously, for larger shots, you can imagine there are more layers. And some people could do them in separate passes, but I found that when problems come up, or if I'm remastering certain things, it kind of helps have each ship be separate. So in shot 13, you've got Batavia glows, Batavia shields, Batavia blinkies, Aladdin 6, Horizon blinkies, Horizon deflectors, Horizon engine fall off, Horizon lower sensor dome, Horizon warp glows, Horizon windows, Intrepid glows, Intrepid warp glows, Intrepid blinkies, Stars 2D, Sun, Siphon Dreadnought disruptors, Siphon Dreadnought enhanced glows, Nebula. That's one pass. That's one shot.
That's a single shot. Obviously with the 4 ships in it. Batavia exactly. and Horizon and Intrepid and the
Columbia
the bad guys.
Yeah.
Oh, Columbia?
Columbia's the Archer class.
Oh, okay. But that's pretty amazing.
And I didn't do that on Temporal Anomaly. I did a teeny bit of it for a few little things, but that was really much more limited, which even shows a 1 year difference in my ability and my PC power. I've increased it in 2019. Now I've got to the level where it's not as big a hassle as it could be. I might as well do 13 passes where I would have done 5 for Temporal Anomaly. So it should look. I mean, hopefully you like the look of the couple of shots you saw in the video.
Love them.
Yeah, it does kind of give it a certain vibe that is hard to replicate any other way.
As Alec Peters likes to call it, it's starship porn.
That is his catchphrase. One of them.
Yep. But it looks so gorgeous, and I understand from an artistic perspective. I'm not a 3D animator, but I use Photoshop a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And Photoshop, you can do layers, and you can
need to do layers.
You need to do layers, and there are times where I'm working on images where I'll take part of the image, copy, paste it into its own layer, and just adjust the lighting on just that. And color saturation or whatever. So, if that's becoming redder, I'm not affecting everything else. And Mark Edward Lewis, who's doing my sound mixing, he does the same thing auditorily because I've seen him layer all of the sound effects over each other. And there's a video that I have on Fan Film Factor where Mark actually put the sound into that opening 19 seconds that I had in my my teaser for Interlude. He did that over the course of 2 hours in front of his students online. And you get to watch him do that in Adobe Audition. And it's amazing to watch because, you hear this stuff and you don't notice it. You really don't. I mean, unless you're a really intricate sound person, you don't notice it. But as they taught me in design school, as a designer, if you do your job properly, nobody knows because they just won't notice it because you've done your job that well. When they notice something, you haven't done your job well.
And well done for knowing to bring on the right people. It sounds like you've got a darn good sound designer because 2 hours is. I've seen that sequence and it's quite cool and it's just like good job.
Yeah, he's going to be sound mixing the whole thing, and I can't wait to see what he does. And Kevin Croxton, who's doing the music, he does an amazing job with the music as well. I mean, it's just, sometimes you get very lucky of getting really good people assigned to a project.
Well, I can certainly vouch for Joshua and Victoria. Like I said, I've worked with them for a while now on the Avalon stuff, and they're really great creative people. So if they're bringing their anything to it, it's going to add something.
They're bringing their A game.
Yeah,
they're totally. And when I say their A game, I mean their Avalon game, their Axonar game.
Although I assume you're not going to do like Avalon style effects because obviously obviously I'm a VFX guy as well, so I'm assuming you're going to go Prelude style effects more than Avalon style, just because they're on it. I mean, or are they pushing for kind of Avalon with more blinkies and more lights? Because when I do Avalon, I give the deflector a nice big glow and there's all these things. Or are you going very Prelude-y, TOS-y style, or are you just doing TOS? Like, what are you thinking, Jonathan? Because
Well, a lot of it, I'm actually, trusting Lewis to figure everything out and make it look good. Yeah, but, I mean, I talk with Lewis about how I want a shot to look, or at least, so far with the shots that we've done. And then more recently, Josh put together a number of VFX shots, a shot list is what they call it. And it had maybe a 2-sentence description of every shot that we need. So there wasn't a lot of specifics about it. And so Lewis, gave us good stuff. I saw it. There were some things I thought could be done a little bit differently or whatever. So I said, okay, well, this last shot of leaving Vulcan, I want to pull out a little bit more, whatever the term is. Josh later told me it's dial back. It's like, okay, I didn't know that term, but anyway, it needs to dial back, needs to pull back from Vulcan so it looks like Vulcan is leaving us. So that's the kind of thing. But, then and some shots I was just like, what? I just didn't quite like the way that's working. Can we take a different approach to it? But in terms of saying this is going to look like Axanar or this is going to look like Avalon or whatever, we haven't really gone over that specifically. I mean, it just looks like right now, it looks like Interlude. It looks like those 3 shots you saw in the teaser, before my crowdfunding campaign. It's looking nice. It's looking really, really good. I want to see the Ares, and the Artemis. The Klingon D7s look amazing. He got access to those models from Tobias.
Makes them nice and canon. I certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I was told in no uncertain terms by my friend that he was not about to model a brand new D7 for me because that's a lot of work and way more than I could possibly afford with even every night of the deer being a free dinner.
It's funny because we just did a D7. I designed a D7 for Avalon, so we did a new D7. So I don't know about it's a custom one. It doesn't look like the actual D7. It looks like a custom thing. It's funny, if the Avalon guys had brought on the Avalon style, it'd be kind of funny to think that your guy would have to frame by frame my stuff and mimic the artistry of all the glows that I put on. But it's funny, for Avalon, I don't have that same shot list style. Most of my productions, actually, which I feel kind of blessed on, a couple, like the original Republic, they had kind of a sense of shots, but a few of them didn't actually make sense when you put into 3D. You just couldn't do that much. So most of my people I work with just vague idea or just look at this part of the script and make. And I can often very quickly visualize what could be, and obviously it's their discretion at the end. But often what I can do is not so it goes beyond, but they're not thinking in cinema. And so they're picturing shot. And so when I give them my interpretation of kind of artistry, cinema, shot, they're like, oh, that is really cool. And it's like, thank you. So I kind of like them. I probably should be using shot lists, but I kind of like the don't use shot list approach. Just let me go do their decision at the end, but I kind of like the freedom personally. And obviously, Convergence is all me, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's all you. You control the horizontal, you control the vertical.
Exactly.
Yeah, for me, with Lewis and I, there's a shot list that gives us the idea to talk about, like, okay, in this shot, we want to see the Ares getting bashed by a torpedo. But it's not like I'm saying specifically come at it from this angle. We want to see the Ares this way or whatever. So, Lewis and I start talking about cinematically what would be the best way to approach that. And he has a lot of great ideas. So a lot of the times I'll sit back and say, okay, what, make this great. And, a couple of times, like in the first 3 images, the first 3 shots, I guess, in the opening segment, the middle one, which is the shot where the ships are kind of really far in the distance. The 2 Ares classes are really far in the distance. We're kind of watching the Klingons, bearing down on them. That wasn't the original shot. The original shot that Lewis gave me was a kind of sideways shot. And it was pretty cool. The 2 Ares ships were kind of flying past the camera left to right. It was almost like a race. They're trying to get out of the way. But it just, for whatever reason, it wasn't working for me. And, God bless Lewis for not bitching about the fact that I didn't like his shot. But, he said, look, hey,
at the end of the day, you guys are the bottom line. The other guys is like, I would love you to do this shot, but if you don't want to do it, that's fine. So I can say sympathize.
So anyway, but I think we got a really good shot out of it, and Paul Jenkins told me this. He said, ultimately, there's no such thing as the right answer. There's no one shot that is like, oh, you chose B, that was the correct one. Different people have different opinions.
Oh, obviously, unless you are the writer and director and editor and VFX of your own fan film, as I was for Convergence and Temporal Anomaly, then there is kind of the bottom line. But most people don't do everything themselves.
Yeah, so you get to tell your VFX person everything you want him to do, and he has to do it.
And he can storm out of the room and then bring me back pie, and then we share it together, and then we just keep working, and then go sleep together, and it's all me. Don't have to worry about it. But back on Convergence, though, Jonathan, is there anything else you'd like to
Yeah.
know? Hopefully, you don't think I've disappointed the community. Obviously, temporarily, people should be used to it taking a long time for different reasons this time. But the worth the wait, I think, out of all fan films, certainly applies to Temporal Anomaly and what I produced from the first bit to the end bit. So hopefully, people can trust me for Convergence also.
Well, at this point, what is the new schedule? When do you think folks are going to see Convergence?
Hopefully, I'm going to say cast will see it by the end of the year. That's my hope, because that is a different edit, as you can imagine. I'd love for it to come out publicly, like on the anniversary of Temporal Anomaly, so very early, like January 2021. That says, in 2 years, I managed to bring out a second one, which you could argue is even higher in scope. It is different scope, but it's also pretty big in scope. So that'd be my ambition. Film in the summer as early as I possibly can. I want to get it done, obviously. But with the visual effects mostly done, it's relatively straightforward just to go through it. And having filmed the first segment, I did a full assembly edit, as you can imagine, and played around with some stuff. And beyond a few microphones not working, which need a reshoot of that angle, oh dear, there's a few moments that I was saying this didn't work as well as I hoped. And I've been able to retool script, because I have to anyway for Michelle, to retool some scenes, hopefully to smooth out some bits that the people brought different things, chemistry-wise, than I had intended. And that's kind of exciting, although it means that the final film will be different to any vision I previously had, because it'll be a lesson learned sort of film, which is kind of exciting in its own way.
Yeah, that's cool. So once you have all of your footage in the can, so to speak, and your visual effects footage is done, then you have to edit it. Mm-hmm. You have to add the sound effects. You have to add the music. Who's doing all of that for you?
Mostly me again.
No? Are you writing your own music?
No. I have no talent. I have no talent in sound either. I literally, Temporal Anomaly, part of the reason the space effects, the space sequences are rather dull audio-wise is because I have no ability on that at all. It's my big weakness. Now I've got, hopefully the guy from Temporal Anomaly will come back, Matt Malign, to do music. It's been a while, but, hopefully. Obviously that can only be done once it's actually edited together. So that will still be a way away. And I'll do probably sound effects. Maybe Joshua Irwin will happily take a look and give me some sound notes, since I've worked with him since starting the project. But yeah, I'll start from scene 1, shot 1, and just go through it all again, and then go back and green screen it all, and then it's not the hardest thing to do when you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I took a brief film class at NYU back when I was in New York City, and one of the lectures was on sound, and it said that basically, as much as you don't think this, sound is more important than visual, because great visuals with crappy sound just look awful. And he joked about how he was working on a project once, and he was looking at something, and the director said to him, "This is going to look so much better when you can hear it." And it's true. It looks really so much better. And the animatics that I'm seeing right now on Interlude are great, but they're all just silent, And space is, of course, silent, but you really want to hear explosions, and you want to hear
Firefly it, then?
Music. No, we're not going to Firefly. You're going to actually hear ships going to warp, and you're going to hear the shields coming up, and more stuff you can hear in space, the better, because otherwise space can be very, very boring.
Yeah, I've got to do a lot of stuff with my Siphon Dreadnought World Killer, because we only see it in 1 to 2 shots in Renegades, and they don't get much sound design, but it features obviously quite prominently, and it does many things. So that's going to be a challenge to kind of design what this empire-ending vessel sounds like. That's beyond my skill set, so hopefully it will help when I get to that point.
Well, I do have to say that as much as I am disappointed that we have to wait another year for Convergence, part of me in a very selfish way is kind of happy, only because you will now not be competing against Interlude. I will be coming out in 2020, so any of the BJO awards or any other awards, I don't have to worry about anything other than Axanar competing against it. So all I have to worry about is Tobias's visual effects
and my Avalon stuff. I will be there too in some way. I'll be there. Don't worry.
Well, we're not supposed to talk about anything that's Avalon based and what's coming out in 2020. I've been sworn to secrecy about that. So, okay. So now people know that things are planned for Avalon, but I think we can say that.
What a reveal!
What a reveal!
It's like I hope that Yorktown will come out this year. A Time to Heal. That's going to look really cool. You know?
Yeah, it's another one that I can't talk about.
Yeah. So I can say I'm
Everybody
excited.
shares secrets with me, and it's like,
Exactly.
and this is don't say anything. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to say anything.
I think in general, 2020 could be a very exciting year for fan films.
Yeah, I mean, there's some amazing stuff coming out. I mean, I can talk about First Frontier, which is the Robert April thing. It was supposed to come out last April 1st. That was my suggestion.
That's funny.
Didn't happen. But that was only because a visual effects person stepped forward at the last minute and said, look, it looks like you could use some help with this. It looks good. It could look great. And that started a whole bunch of dominoes rolling. I've seen the film. It's a very strong film. It's just, I think on the visual effects side of things, it still has some room to grow and be perfected. But I believe that, the plan is to get that out this year. And then there's lots of other stuff that I know is in production. Obviously, Potemkin Pictures is obviously going to have, another 5 or 10 or 12 or 20, 50. Vance Major is planning what he calls Constar Continues.
His phase 4 of the
whatever it is,
universe, yeah.
Exactly. And this year he will be filming this summer on the Ares Bridge set. And we will actually see Garth, but not as we've seen him before. That's going to be fun. Obviously, Dreadnought Dominion continues doing their things.
I look forward to hearing from them again.
Benny Hall, who is just been featured on Fan Film Factor with an interview with his Let Old Wrinkles Come. He just produced his own fan film on the Neutral Zone Studios set and also at Vasquez Rocks. Oh. In fact, he had a Mugatu. A very convincing Mugatu. My hat is off to him. Anyway, he spent $50,000 of his own money on that fan film. And that was his first foray into fan films. And now he's going to go for his second foray into fan films. So he's crowdfunding that.
Not to plug again, but Romulan War, something will come out.
About to say Romulan War. I mean that's like it's like that bus in the movie that's like just on the precipice of the cliff, and it's like you're waiting for it to start falling. Not that Romulan War is going to be falling off a cliff, but it's just we've been sort of waiting for the big explosion that happens, and
it's hard to relate. Obviously, I've been on that project for maybe 3 years now. Every month I've been working on it in some respects. I mean, from my perspective, I can't say how many shots because there's too many that'd be a giveaway, but there's so much. I mean, the ambition has literally grown a lot since even Indiegogo, and that's really the reason. If you'd pitched me the scale now, then I probably would have declined the project. 3 years ago, it's ridiculous.
Boiling the frog, Sam. Boiling the frog.
But
very slowly.
Those people who get to enjoy it will be there's a lot of stuff. And I mean, if ambition can be realized, everyone wins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving the things I've been seeing with the war stories, which are these we call the enhanced audio dramas, which are essentially voiceovers. I did a voiceover myself for one of them. I was Lieutenant Commander Jeffrey Christopher, the descendant of Sean Jeffrey Christopher, but apparently I created the Warp 7 engine. So, but all of these wonderful actors, many of them do a better job than I did, recording their logs and then animating around them. But these war stories that we've been having in the meantime have been they're so engaging. You really get into the story, even though the story is only logs of about 4 or 5 or 6 minutes long. I can't wait to see what finally comes out of all of this. And of course, obviously we're all waiting for Axanar.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen so far, the footage looks incredible. And I'm going to say this, it's not really a spoiler because they've talked about this, but there's one scene where they needed an engineer in engineering.
Oh, yeah.
And they basically got like these yellow pipes and they put them in the middle of the bridge. And they had the person kind of squatting down in the middle of, that little lowered section in front of one of the consoles. And how is this possibly going to look like engineering? It's just, obviously, it's the bridge, It's like, I saw it through the camera the other day. It looks like a completely different set. It's like the magic of the camera. They're doing a lot of amazing stuff with that. So, here's hoping that it is ready by San Diego Comic-Con this year or by Dragon Con or whatever. At least part one of it, if nothing else. And then hopefully Interlude will be done as well. We are actually on schedule, believe it or not.
Brilliant. Let me know how that feels. Or tell me next year how that feels.
Well, right now, Lewis is putting the finishing touches on the visual effects. As we're recording this, you and I are talking on January 7th, but this coming weekend, they're filming the sickbay scene where Ramirez is, in pain and writhing and whatever. And then on the middle of February, they're going back to Ares Studios, and we're going to grab the last shots of Garth, the older Garth. So, we filmed Garth with the dyed hair. So now we're doing green screen of Alec talking as the older Garth. And we also have to get the engineer. And then we will have every single piece of footage in the can.
Brilliant.
And by the point that happens, Lewis has told me he will have all of our visual effects done. Then it's being edited right now by Josh. I have not seen the edit yet, but I can't wait to. And once we have the final edit, it goes to Kevin Croxton to do the scoring. He's going to do that in March and possibly a little bit in April. And then it goes to Mark Edward Lewis to do the sound effects and put everything together. And the only thing that's going to slow this thing down is the closing credits, because I've got 250 or 300 different donors, and I have to basically make a list of all of them because they all donated different amounts of money, because there's the ensign level and the lieutenant level. And so that's going to be me basically in a very long weekend or 2 or 3 just making that long list.
And if I can jump in there, you mentioned backers. Just for anyone who might have backed Convergence, not to pivot too far there, although it is the perks are mostly, except obviously the digital version of the film, are such they're signed cool things. If you haven't filmed part 2 to get people back together to sign things, you can't send them out. But my aim is, as soon as we film part 2, I will then dedicate like an entire weekend just to packaging things up and sending them out. So that is my aim. So as soon as you hear on the social medias that we've filmed part 2, expect to hear things are out soon.
I will post that update on Fan Film Factor for you when that happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sam, it sounds like you've got to get back to work because there's a lot of stuff on your plate, isn't there?
Well, Trekyard's live today, so yeah, I've got to go watch TNG episode, and then we're going to review it for 2 hours. So yeah, stuff to do.
And then once Picard starts up, then you're going to have
that is going to be
technology to analyze.
Gosh, it'll be a thing, Jonathan. It'll be a thing.
And I don't know how you're going to get everything else in your life done at the same time.
I will not.
Okay.
That is the answer.
All right. Well, anyway, keep us posted on the progress with Convergence.
And do go check out the update video, because I'm in cool uniform and you get to see a few little cool things for the nice visual version. This is the full interview version for all more details. And check out that for the sexy visuals.
Sexy visuals, my friend. Sexy visuals. All right. We'll talk to you soon, Sam.
Thanks.